So this weekend, Monster Pro Wrestling weekend, right? Obviously, there's a lot of football, NFL, college football, Thanksgiving. I got my son's bar mitzvah, but we're making sure. I already told my son, we're coming home from the bar mitzvah. What are we doing? We're sitting down on the couch in the Zaslow Mansion family room. We're watching Survivor Series War Games. And joining us now from Good Karma Wrestling, also, of course, ESPN Radio, ESPN Milwaukee, Gabe Neitzel, who I did Wednesday afternoon, Carlin versus Joe with on ESPN Radio. Gabe, I'm looking forward to doing a little War Games preview here with you. We both know nothing better than being able to, just a couple guys being able to chop it up about pro wrestling. But tell me first, or tell all my listeners here, Good Karma Wrestling, you guys are every Thursday night. What do you guys got going on coming up?
Yeah, every Thursday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And, so we recorded a special episode on Tuesday, so we'll still have one coming out on Thanksgiving. Myself, Jonathan Hood, Brian Rowitz. Been going for a couple of years now with GKW. It's been a lot of fun, be able to chop it up with those guys every Thursday. Have had a lot of really good guests. So if you want to check out our YouTube page, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling, check out all the different pro wrestling content we've got over there.
Yeah, you guys get great guests on your show.
I credit all that to Jay Hood. Well, Jay Hood and Brian. Like, Brian Rowitz is just, he is always looking for different opportunities. Oh, somebody's up in Wisconsin. Somebody's in Chicago where Jay Hood is. Somebody's down there. Yeah. And a lot of the companies have been very, very helpful with some of the guests we've been able to grab. Yeah,
that's the key right there. Is because you guys are in 3 different locations. There's always seemingly an opportunity. Hey, WWE, hey, EW, you're near our city. Can we get one of the guests to come up on the show? That's very convenient for you guys.
Oh, it's very convenient. It certainly has helped with the guest list that we've been able to get. And, we've been going strong. And, it's a lot of fun. So if you have some time, some extra pro wrestling talk bandwidth, check us out with Good Karma Wrestling.
All right. So War Games this Saturday night, Survivor Series. Have you ever been to Survivor Series #1?
No, I have never been to Survivor Series. So that's the thing. There's not a lot of, if I'm going to go to a WWE or an AEW, premium live event or pay-per-view, whatever you want to call them, I got to go down to Chicago for it a lot of the times. I wanted to go to last year because I thought maybe there's a chance that CM Punk shows up. And obviously he did. And it just did not work out in the schedule with all the football stuff going on. This Survivor Series is always a really busy time of the year.
I've been to Survivor Series once. The only one of the big 4 pay-per-view I've never been at is SummerSlam. That's the only one that I haven't been to yet. And I think that the time is right to eventually do it because now they're going to be treating it like WrestleMania where they're doing 2 nights of SummerSlam.
So my favorite, I really want to go to one. I was thinking about making the trip to Indianapolis because I'm in Milwaukee, not that far. Unfortunately, I do stuff with the Marquette Radio Network. So the night of the Rumble this year is National Marquette Day. They're taking on UConn, so I'm not going to be able to go and do that. But hopefully Milwaukee's trying to get a Royal Rumble at AmFam Field where the Brewers play up here. I'm hoping for that. What's the Royal Rumble like in person?
Royal Rumble's so good. I've been 3 times. I went in 1991. I was 10 years old. It was during the Gulf War. Hogan won the Royal Rumble, but that was when Macho cracked the Warrior over the head with the scepter, and Sergeant Slaughter won the championship. Probably the biggest moment I've ever been at as a wrestling fan. That was such a big deal. So I went in 1991. I went in 2016, actually sat ringside, and that was when Roman had to defend the belt at #1 in the Rumble, and Triple H won the Rumble, and he won his, last World Championship. That was 2016.
AJ Styles debuted there too, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that AJ Styles debut?
Yes, AJ Styles debuted. That was really cool. And I also went to this past year, Royal Rumble 24, where Cody Rhodes back-to-back. And that one was great because it was the first Rumble that I've been to in a stadium. And me and my son were on the floor. And that's a different experience when the crowd is around you and you're on the floor. Like I thought, all right, unless you're sitting right up in the front on the floor, that's not good. No. I realized here, if you're just on the floor in the Royal Rumble, it's pretty awesome the way that the crowd surrounds you. And that shit was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you're taking your son. You're raising your kids right. Get into these big events, get them hooked early. That's you're just raising your kids right. That's all you're doing right now.
My younger one loves going with me. It's fantastic. All right, so let's talk about this weekend. Let's. I mean, the main event obviously is the men's War Game match. How surprised were you with CM Punk? Paul Heyman returns this past Friday. CM Punk in tow. Did you believe that there was a chance that Heyman was going to come back with CM Punk? How surprised were you?
I figured Heyman was going to be making a return with the way they did the cliffhanger of Roman trying to call the wise man, the numbers get disconnected. Like in the back of my mind, like you always thought, okay, maybe Punk could be, but the way that everything else had fallen together, you've got Big Bronson Reed going with the new bloodline. Big Bronson Reed, it locked in, with Seth Rollins. They cost Seth Rollins his match on Monday Night Raw. I just assumed it was going to be Seth. And honestly, I was going to be really disappointed with that because Seth was just so strong in his convictions of, I will never team with Roman. I'm like, they're going to go back on it. It's just not going to feel like CM Punk makes so much sense to me. And I am so excited for this because they're much like everything else with the bloodline and bloodline related. There are just tentacles that can come off of this, some deeper storytelling. Like Punk makes so much more sense than Seth Rollins. He can, whenever he fights with Seth, he can go, hey, I stepped up. You didn't step up. I stepped in and showed, stepped in there for War Games. I think that can be part of that storyline whenever you do CM Punk and Seth Rollins. So I am super pumped for CM Punk. I'm just also crossing my fingers that he can survive this. It seems like every match this man is in now in WWE ends up being some sort of gimmick match between Hell in a Cell and the strap match he did with Drew McIntyre. Now he's in War Games. So I'm just kind of crossing my fingers that he stays healthy and he can make a good run here to WrestleMania.
Obviously having Roman back plays a major part in what I'm about to say, but we're back in that spot with the bloodline story where it's not just one direction. Like you said, there are different tentacles. There are so many different ways they can go with the story. And that's what made the story for the first couple years so great and has been missing from the story probably since WrestleMania.
Yeah, because Roman's the centerpiece of the whole thing, right? Like, I mean, he has been since day one. So when he's not there, and especially with no Paul Heyman, because I feel like in years past when Roman wasn't there because whatever he's got in his contract where he doesn't have to be there as much, like you still had the representative, you still had Paul Heyman there and, he would have his phone and be like, I was just talking with the tribal chief. So even though Roman wasn't around, he still had a presence and they were able to kind of get by with that versus this last time around, especially after Paul Heyman gets power bombed through the table, then Paul Heyman's gone. It was missing that little piece of constantly having that Roman touch that really makes the story interesting.
What's going through my mind when Punk returns and they dispose of the new bloodline and it's Roman standing there with Punk across from him and Heyman in the middle. What a money shot. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow. I mean, I guess I didn't realize how money a Roman versus Punk feud, which, look, we could be talking way down the road. That's not going to happen anytime soon. But how money a Roman versus Punk storyline can wind up being as we're staring at that. And, we can look at whatever 5-star, wrestling matches and, cool moves and all that shit. But to me, it's like that right there, that moment, Punk, Roman, they're staring at each other. Roman says, that's my wise man. Punk says, we'll see about that. Like that right there, that's the fucking best. That's it's pro wrestling at its absolute peak.
Well, they planted the seeds for something like this. Again, maybe they knew eventually that, okay, we got to do a Punk and Roman thing because in one of Punk's first promos a year ago when he came back and he's calling out all these guys, hey, Roman Reigns, just remember, I'm the original Paul Heyman guy. Right? And that's the one thing that Hunter and Triple H is doing such a great job with WWE, planting these little seeds, whether it's backstage segments where, an interview is going on and you're like, hey, what's going on in the background there? And then that comes back to play into fruition either on that episode or a week later. He's just so good at connecting these dots. And then the WWE production team so good at putting together the videos in the big match. Like I guarantee whenever they do a Punk Roman match, the video clips they're going to be playing are going to include what we just saw on SmackDown on Friday, some of the promos Punk has already cut as the baseline of whatever that feud is going to be. And like you said, we have so many other things to get to. Like Punk's got to get to Seth Rollins. Roman has The Rock still looming. There are so many different ways to go. And now you're going, wait a minute. Yeah, I want to see that. But also, oh man, I can't wait till they get to Roman versus CM Punk. Because then the other layer of that is Roman and Seth Rollins debuted at the behest with the Shield of CM Punk at Survivor Series. So there's another little layer that you can add to whatever story that ends up being.
Now, Paul Heyman's a heel. All right. Like Paul Heyman's character really doesn't work as a baby face. Paul Heyman's a heel. And he comes out, everyone points out, he's wearing the same getup as Solo is. But that's not WWE style. That's too obvious. I feel like they're trying to throw you off the scent by all of us saying, "Ooh, is he working with Solo here?" That's way too obvious, isn't it?
It feels like it, but again, since Hunter has taken over, like a little detail like that, I don't know if Vince would have done that toward the ends of the Vince reign, right? Hunter does. So because we noticed that detail, he knows we're going to pick up on it. So either, it's going to be the obvious connection, or he's just throwing it out there to throw us off the scent. That's the great thing about the Triple H era is you've got to pay attention to all these little details because they may end up mattering down the line. And I think that's why people notice right away, like, oh, I've seen Solo in that getup before. Maybe this is a sign that he's actually aligned with Solo Sikoa and wants to get his revenge against Roman Reigns because Roman didn't reach out. Roman hadn't called him between WrestleMania and then SmackDown 2 weeks ago when his phone was out of service. So there's just enough doubt there where you're thinking, yeah, that seems too obvious. But at the same time, he has to. Because like you said, both CM Punk, when CM Punk was in the middle of his long reign, they turned CM Punk heel by just aligning him simply with Paul Heyman. Hey, you're going to be with Paul Heyman. Clearly, you're going to be a heel. That's how Roman Reigns became a heel when they revealed that he was originally the wise man. Like you weren't sure what Roman was when he first came back in the Thunderdome era. Oh, he's with Paul Heyman. Okay, I guess he's a bad guy now, right? Like that's in fairness, Paul Heyman has been the sympathetic, almost baby face as he was trying to get out from underneath Solo Sikoa. So again, there's just enough gray there that you think you know where it's going, but you're not 100% sure, and that's where the fun lies.
So they're not going to leave it there. You know, like we're eventually going to find out what it means where Roman made the call. We assume it's Paul Heyman, but Roman made the call and the number was disconnected. Like eventually we're going to find out what that was, but I'm more interested. Do you think there's anything to Sami Zayn where the OG bloodline is watching the television and while nobody's looking, Sami reaches into his pocket, takes his phone and chucks it onto the couch? That has to mean something, right?
I think it does. Yes. Again, because those little details are always what's going to be fun about this. At some point, somebody's going to betray someone, right? And you assume it's going to be somebody in that OG bloodline that's going to align themselves with Solo. I'm assuming Rock is going to align himself with Solo as well whenever he comes back because the money is in a Rock Roman match. But also,
do you think we see Rock this weekend?
I do. I think he starts planting the seeds of, maybe the build towards, WrestleMania. I have no idea how much Rock is going to be available. I'm fascinated to see how they pull off. Okay, how much is Cody actually disconnected from the bloodline? Because Cody Rock, there's a lot of money still and a lot of meat left on that bone if they want to go that direction. But at the same time, we also want to see Rock versus Roman. So which one of those matches goes first? How many matches does The Rock have? It's again, could go in a number of different directions. And with all the different shows that they have now, like that first Monday Night Raw on Netflix is going to be huge. And I think you can put something really big on that because there's no difference between that first Raw on Netflix and any PLE on Peacock. They're both behind paywalls. You both need the subscription. So why not treat that first Monday Night Raw like a pay-per-view and make it this huge event? I think they're going in that direction. But I have no idea. Again, they've done enough. They've done a really good job of making you think you know, and they've got you hooked. You're just going along with the story, with the bloodline, and you just can't wait to see where it goes. And it's, at least on our show, Zaz, I don't know how you felt when Paul Heyman a couple WrestleManias ago said, yeah, this thing's only in the bottom of the third. We're like, bottom of the third? How is this thing not almost done with? How is this not wrapped up? And, made a fool of us. You always trust Paul Heyman, not necessarily on screen, but trust Paul Heyman when he's talking, the mind games of professional wrestling.
Who wins War Games?
I mean, it's got to be Solo's side, right?
I think so.
It's got to be Solo's side because that's the only way.
If you want to keep the story going, I think it has to be Solo.
It has to be Solo, and that's where I think The Rock shows up. He aligns himself with Solo, and now the OG bloodline has that to overcome in the run-up to Rumble, WrestleMania, wherever that's going to lead it.
But does Seth get involved at all? Like, I think the new bloodline can win War Games with Seth getting involved. Like, Seth does the full heel turn. Maybe it's because he hates Roman. Maybe it's because he hates Punk. Whichever one it is. I think Seth
maybe because of both. Why not both?
Yeah. I think the new bloodline wins War Games.
Yeah, if Rock doesn't show up, and again, you never know. That's always the beauty because he showed up, a couple of months ago, and we haven't heard from him since. He just showed up and didn't say anything on the microphone. His music just hit. He, shook his head at Bad Blood in Atlanta. We haven't seen him since. So I think we see him soon, but the beauty of The Rock is we don't know what his schedule is. He's got a couple of movies, Moana 2. I'm sure that, he's got a lot of promoting he still needs to do for that movie. His Bad Christmas movie, I think he's done promoting. But, I think he's going to be around sooner rather than later. But the beauty of The Rock, and because it is Dwayne and they have so many other good things, they can keep that one under wraps. And they've done a pretty good job of keeping his appearances in the back pocket and making you want to make sure you don't miss it just in case he shows up.
Who beat up Jade Cargill?
All right, so Naomi already
I think they want us to believe it's Piper Niven so that it could help Chelsea, win the United States title. Which, oh my God, please! I hope Chelsea Green wins the United States title.
Yes,
I'm glad. That's the best when the push is organic, and this is so organic. I've loved Chelsea Green for a long time. She is a big star, but now everybody's behind her. They want us to believe it's Piper Niven. That's too obvious. Like you were saying there, Naomi has already denied it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so Naomi's denied it. Could it be Piper Niven? I'm wondering if it's somebody else trying to sabotage on the War Games side. Nia denied it, although she would be a top, somebody to suspect. I would love if it was Bianca Belair. I think that would be a fun, interesting twist, but I don't know if Bianca's can Bianca be a heel? Is she reaching like John Cena status on the women's side? No, she can be a fantastic heel. She can be a fantastic heel, but I feel like she's just so over, especially with when she comes out and the way that you see the kids' faces light up when she comes out. She's got a great theme song. She's twirling the braid in her hair. I don't know if WWE wants to make her a heel the same reason they didn't make Cena heel for all those years, because he was just so over with the kids and you didn't want to necessarily pull that trigger.
Well, look, she was a great heel at NXT. She was a better heel in NXT than she was a babyface. I would say, the way you could eventually turn her heel, you put her opposite Rhea Ripley. Anyone opposite Rhea Ripley is going to be a heel. I don't think it's Bianca. I think it's Naomi or Bayley. I think it's one of the two. I think Naomi is super stale, and it's something that they could do with Naomi. And maybe they just look at Bayley and they're like, Bayley wanted to, weasel her way into the War Games match, and this was the way to do it. Maybe they're done with Bayley as a babyface. She's only been a babyface since right before WrestleMania this year. Maybe they're done with it.
Yeah, and she had a really good run as a heel. That makes a ton of sense. I could see, like you said, Naomi maybe getting a little bit stale. So Naomi doing it and becoming, turning her into this monster heel. Bayley had no idea. There's a lot of different matches that you can have there. If it indeed was Naomi. Naomi's probably the most interesting choice. And again, it's just so hard because you don't know when Jade is coming back. The reports.
Why do you think injury. Is she actually hurt? Why did they do this?
Yeah. So from everything I understand, I think she's actually hurt. They had to write her off because she has an injury, and it could be anywhere from 3 months to a year,
Oh
from what I saw.
man.
So it seems very unfortunate because eventually, I mean, you had to break up Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. There was going to be money there no matter what, and the presumption would be that, oh, you turned Jade Cargill into this mega heel, almost very similar to the character she was in AEW, but kind of flipping that on its head and making.
I think it's going to be the other way around. I think
yeah,
it's going to be.
But if you go the other way and you make Bianca the heel, I think that becomes a lot more fun and interesting.
Well, if that's the case, if Jade's really going to be out for a while, we may not actually get an answer to this angle. We may have the reveal of this angle when Jade returns. Then we may not know for a long time. I would say. When do you believe, because I am looking forward to this and I have the way that I would like them to do it, when do you believe Charlotte Flair finally returns?
It's another great question.
Because here's what I think. I think it's imminent. All right. And I think the way that I would like to see them do it is Nia Jax has been running around calling herself the queen since she won Queen of the Ring.
Yeah.
I would like to see Charlotte. Charlotte's like, she gets involved there. And I could see Charlotte taking the title from Nia Jax. And that's when Tiffany Stratton finally cashes in. She cashes in immediately on Charlotte Flair. And then, of course, you get the inevitable build to Charlotte Flair versus Tiffany Stratton.
Yeah, so I think that would be a really interesting way to do it because also the underlying current, like there's always been whispers and rumors that you kind of hear that they want Charlotte to make a run at her dad's record. And that would be a quick way for her to get a quick title reign, right? Win it and then lose it right away. And then, then you get in the storyline of the chase. And that would make a lot of sense, I think, for Tiffany Stratton. And you could really prolong that because then you've got the Nia Jax portion of it. Like maybe she almost feels betrayed as well. Like, wait a minute, I just had it. Now Tiffany has it. And I think there's something you can do interesting there on maybe a triple threat match down the line. But yes, I would sign up for Charlotte Flair returning to confront. And that's the only way it makes sense too. Like her returning from Monday Night Raw. Like you've got Rhea Ripley over there already. You've got everything going on with the Judgment Day. And yeah, I think making her on SmackDown would make a lot more sense because whenever Charlotte returns, she's going to be involved in the title. It's just she's Charlotte Flair. That's the way these things work.
Yeah, and you can't. And like otherwise, how can you have Nia Jax run around calling herself the queen? Like it makes too much sense. I hope that's the way they do it. Do you see a scenario where Gunther drops the title this weekend?
I don't. I like what they've been doing. I like this little wrinkle to the Gunther character of, hey, he lost to Cody Rhodes. Maybe he's not as invincible as we thought. And having those doubts to me just make the character seem more real. But I don't think it's time for him to drop the title yet. I don't know what that then means for Damian Priest. I don't want him just to go back and start feuding with the Judgment Day again. So I don't know where Damian goes. Maybe he just disappears off of television for a little bit and they, find some different creative for him down the line. But I'm not ready for Gunther to be done as the world heavyweight champion. I think he is ultimately going to come out on top.
Shinsuke Nakamura is winning the U.S. title this weekend, right?
Oh God. I'm so probably not. If he was, I think he would have returned sooner. Like, I don't think he was hurt, right?
I think he's winning it. I think he's winning it. I think LA Knight chasing is always fun. So you got that.
Yeah.
And like eventually you got to pull the trigger here on Nakamura. Like we've been through this where he shows up. He's got kind of like a new persona and he challenges for a title. Most recently it was with Cody, I think Nakamura looks badass.
He does.
He is badass. And I think Nakamura is going to win that title this Saturday.
Ever since they made the decision to let him speak Japanese and put the subtitles on, doing the backstage segments, like he looked so good. But I mean, you're right. Like you can only do this so much and have him. I don't know if he's actually won since they decided to make him this heel bad.
Right.
Because he won after these championships and then he just falls, he wasn't going to beat Cody. So him winning would make that character better. And to me, certainly more useful. I've always been a Shinsuke Nakamura fan. I don't think Vince quite understood what he had and, didn't quite use him right. So I'm hoping, if he gets a U.S. title run here and now LA Knight's got to chase him a little bit more, or you get some more people involved in that chase, I sign me up for any sort of Shinsuke Nakamura like title run in any championship.
Women's War Games, who wins?
My guess is the baby faces go over. Probably the heels.
I think it's the baby faces.
But okay, so are you really into this match? I mean, I think the match itself is going to be good. Like the 10 performers in the ring are all very good. But this is kind of like the anti of what Triple H has been. Because this is an old like, oh, well, I guess it's War Games, so we have to have a women's War Game match. So they just took 5 baby faces and threw them up against 5 heels. And the build for it, to me, I just haven't gotten behind the build. And I'm hoping now that War Games has been reintroduced to the WWE fan base enough, they start only using War Games when it makes sense. Much like they did with Hell in a Cell. Like Hell in a Cell used to be its own pay-per-view, and then they're like, oh, well, Hell in a Cell's coming up. We got to do something there. But now they're using it for when feuds actually call for it, like CM Punk and Drew McIntyre did earlier this year. I'm hoping they get away from Survivor Series War Games. You can go back to the traditional Survivor Series tag matches, and I think you can have some success with those. But I'm just not into the build of this women's one. It just kind of feels like they did it because they felt like they had to. And especially when you've got such a good story going on with the bloodline, this one just doesn't match up. And I don't know if that's partially because they had this plan, then Rhea got hurt, but then she wasn't hurt as bad, so they could bring her back. But now Jade's hurt. It just a lot of starting and stopping, and it's just a lot of feuds kind of just hodgepodge thrown together.
The reason I'm into it is I trust them that they're going to make it worth our while. Like,
the match itself, like I have no doubt the match is going to be good.
Yeah, and B, I like that there's a bunch of different things going on here. You have the whole Nia and Tiffy storyline. You got Rhea and Liv Morgan, of course. You know, Bayley and Io Sky. Is there going to be a moment where they don't like teaming up with each other? Bianca and Bayley. Is there going to be a moment where they don't like teaming up with each other? So I feel like there's a bunch of different angles here, and that part to me is intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, if in the middle of this thing, Tiffany Stratton decided to cash in on one of her teammates,
like is that a possible thing?
I would be in on chaos. I would be all in on that chaos. Just, hey, by the way, in the middle of this match, or even before the War Games match officially starts, because it doesn't start until everybody's in the ring, like she decided to go into business for herself. Now, I doubt that happens, but like the way they've told the story and the way Tiffany's kind of, thought about cashing it in at different times, I wonder if she becomes tempted to try to cash it in after, let's say that either, Nia like goes for, the Annihilator and misses, and she's laid out after going through a table or something. Does that cross Tiffany Stratton's mind? Oh, can I cash in? Can I become champion now? I think that is an interesting part. But I don't know if you necessarily needed War Games, because you're doing a great job telling that Tiffany Stratton, Nia Jax story anyway. And Nia Jax has been probably the most interesting she's been in any of her runs in WWE.
Oh, she's been fantastic since she returned. She's been great. She's lost a lot of weight. She's a great heel. She's very unlikable. She's been fantastic since her return. I love what she's doing.
Yeah. And then pairing her with Tiffany Stratton. And they can't even adding Candice LeRae, even adding LeRae to that mix, because she was starting to turn heel, and then they took away her partner for who knows what reason in IndyCar. But to add her to that mix, as she's trying to get under Tiffany Stratton's skin, the whole thing's been really good.
Gabe, excellent job. Tell everybody again, Good Karma Wrestling. Go ahead.
GKW, every Thursday night, we've got a live show at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You can check it out on our YouTube page, number of different social media outlets as well. But our YouTube page is where you're going to find a lot of our content, a lot of our old interviews as well. YouTube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling.
Awesome. Great job, Gabe. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me, Zaz.